Good on you, Hutto. As you said, St Kilda royalty joining us, Sir Lenny Hayes. Hello and welcome again to On the Couch following round 19, which has left us with 10 sides, mathematically still a chance for the final 8. The final's kicking off in just over 4 weeks' time. Welcome to you, Michael and Jason. Boys, are you looking in fine form?
Hello, Jared. I hope we are. 10 sides in the race for the 8, 2, maybe 3 in the race for the flag.
Just the 3?
2, maybe 3.
I look forward to examining the 3. We'll stretch out the 3, Mike, if you don't mind. I'll find out what took your fancy in just a sec, but let me open the batting. I think it's time that we all appeal to the common sense of the AFL Commission. It's led by Gillon McLachlan this time round. And I've asked him personally, but I'll do it one more time. On behalf of everybody watching on TV, about 200,000 on the weekend, and the majority of people at the ground, I suspect, close the bloody roof, please, Gillon. This time with a please, Jason. I mean, this is a dangerous situation. We see players there now just shielding their eyes. It was a brilliant day in Melbourne, and once again, it is a disaster for anybody at home. There was 18,000 people. You take a survey, probably 50% want it open, 50% want it closed. But I think it's gone too far, and it needs changing, Jason.
It does. If the players can't see the ball, which is the very object of the game, we have an issue, and it has to be fixed.
I reckon if you send that incident with Frawley and whoever the Brisbane Lions player was, send that and that alone to the AFL, they would be obstinate not to say that we've got a problem.
We've shown them the vision a number of times, Mike, and obstinate, I think, is the right word. Bloody obstinacy is probably getting to the stage, but the frustration is enormous for everybody trying to put on the show, the coaches, the umpires, the players. It's time.
And TV spectators.
What about your good self, Jason?
Well, let me go before. We'll go around this way tonight. I've got a conundrum, right? The Magpies brag yesterday, and rightly so, that they've got 80,000 members.
Yep. That's a lot, isn't it?
Then the attendance goes up, and there's 32,000 people. Now, either the Magpie faithful have lost the faith in their team, or they think that the 4:40 time slot stinks. What is it?
I suspect it might be the latter. On a winter's day, the 4:40 time slot, I just think a lot of people perhaps chose to stay at home.
And whilst we had that up, you could see in the very top echelons of the stand, the nosebleed areas, we had a lot of people. Why are we selling tickets to people at a game where we know there's going to be less than 40,000 people there and sticking them up in the nosebleed seats?
Jared, Collingwood should play practice games in front of 40,000. So, I mean, I would have thought the expectation was 45. There would have been 2,000 or 3,000 Port Adelaide supporters, right? We given that?
Yep.
Therefore, the Collingwood contingent is below 30,000 in a game in which they're playing for a spot in the 8. Now, something is amiss, isn't it?
They missed a good showing by the Pies as well. I know you're a half-empty man. We'll discuss that down the track. Half full for me. Myopic Mike tonight. What about you, Jason?
Do you know what I found really interesting this weekend? And this comes off the back of what we saw a week ago with a nasty incident where Ty Vickery caught Dean Cox. I saw every game I saw there were spot fires breaking out everywhere. Anger and frustration was spilling over. Whether it was Richmond GWS, there was plenty going on in the Geelong North game. Every time I worked at a game or turned on the TV and watched a game, there was stuff going on. Carlton and Freo, you name it. There was niggle absolutely everywhere. And
That's okay.
I'm staggered.
No, that's okay. You let it whack people in the guts. Doesn't matter how hard you hit them.
Look
That's
at
okay. What do you think? It's just
I don't know what's happened.
Was it round 19?
Yeah, long season. Yeah.
Maybe everyone's getting a little tired towards the end of the season, Jared, but they just lost focus.
Well, if ever there was evidence that Richmond mishandled their messaging, Ty Vickery, I think Reece Conker showed it, which is an extension of what you're saying. I've never seen anything quite like what we saw from Reece Conker, and I'm staggered, Mike, that it didn't end up at the tribunal.
I'm not sure. I agree with you about that, and he's very lucky. I mean, we shouldn't have got away with 2 matches, but is it Richmond's fault? I mean, why would you blame Richmond for that?
Well, I think last week they almost gave Ty Vickery an out by saying he's an aggressive player that overstepped the mark. I heard Conker today basically saying the same thing. I don't think they were strong enough in saying that's unacceptable.
I thought they changed their view the previous week. I thought they were soft early and then hardened up.
Well, Reece Conker missed the message.
Yeah, 2 matches for that. Now, the bloke who'll probably top the Brownlow medal voting, Nathan Fyfe, got the same penalty as what Reece Conker got. And Fife's was an accidental head contact in a legitimate bumping accident.
Well,
Right?
it's an accidental head contact, but it was a deliberate bump, and he did have options. You got to remember that. And don't look. I don't like seeing good players rubbed out for that. But that is the rule, and blood was drawn, Mike, and a player was dazed.
I'm comparing that incident with the Conker incident.
But you're comparing apples and oranges. You can't do that.
Well, they both end up missing 2 games.
I understand that. But there are rules in place that are applied to different types of incidents, and that was the wash-up. I understand what you're saying, but rules are rules.
I know.
Satisfied?
No, I'm not. Because a ball player will probably lose the Brownlow medal for his incident.
And I know you're really mad, and you've got a minute to express yourself on a number of other
often really mad,
issues regarding the match review panel. Pretty mad over in Port Adelaide at the present time. Their fall from grace has been quite extreme. At one stage, they were 12-2. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games. But it seems not that long ago that we're all singing their praises.
They were a basket case at the start of the 2013 season.
I think everyone.
And now we love watching them play.
Everyone had them dead and buried. We're looking at the membership climb here from 29 just 4 years ago to 49. That's exceptional.
I mean, they've gone from they're 14th to 1st in 30 games of football.
How far do you think they go?
They go as far as they believe they can, which I think is all the way. They're in it. There's no doubt they're in it. They were playing a great team on their home patch.
And they could have won.
And you know what they did do? They won the 4th term again. They believe they will run over anyone.
You were talking there, Jason, following the Sydney loss. They play Sydney on the weekend. I thought there were some signs for them to turn it around, but they're miles off their best. Some of the headlines that we've been part of and have been written about them, they are all about premiership threats and all about playing in the last couple of weeks in September.
Has your enthusiasm waned?
Absolutely it has. And I was just about to say, that comment I made, I don't think they believe anymore. And you can see it in the way the players are going about their business. That frenetic pace that what they were playing with, that unabandoned run that just came from everywhere is gone. On top of that, couple that with poor execution, and this is a side that's a shadow of what we saw over the first 12 or 13 weeks.
One other factor I want to ask you about that. They lauded the fact and they boasted about how good they were in tight finishes because they were fitter than anyone else. They've lost that edge.
Collingwood ran over them.
Yep, they did.
Yesterday. That was the impressive thing about Collingwood. I don't think Collingwood played great, but they were harder, more desperate, and they ran.
Let's take a look at the AFL ladder because Port are notionally still in the mix. I think that they can get their form back, but it's going to take something quite extraordinary. Mike, open the batting up with the 3 potentials and then give us anybody else who's half a chance.
Jared, I think it's a 2-way race and it's the top 2. To me...
You're writing Geelong off still.
Well...
Chris Scott's not happy with you.
I'm not writing them off.
Well, you just said it's only a racing 2.
Yes.
How could you possibly leave them out of calculations?
I said they are possibly the third.
So you've written off Freo?
Yeah, I don't think they can win. No, I think Freo... I'm happy for a team to have a 2 or 3 week lull, but their form the entire season has been below what we expected of them.
And got out of jail against Carlton.
Yeah, they did.
We'll come back to them. Let's take a look at Port's final month on the run home because it's not going to be an easy one quite clearly, Jason. The Swans and the Gold Coast, they're competing for spots in the 8, then the Blues, and they can beat anybody at the moment, the Blues, and then a major challenge in round 23.
There's no gimme games there, are there? I mean, Carlton are playing reasonable football, so whilst you might think that's the one they're most favoured to win, there are absolutely no gimme games.
On the form that they're in, I think that they are not entitled to expect to win more than 2 of those. They should be happy winning 2 of those.
Which is the second win they're going to get? Maybe Gold Coast up at Metricon.
Maybe, yeah.
Because you couldn't tip them to beat Sydney and you couldn't tip them to beat
Freo in Perth. Yeah.
I think their great chance is that they had a week off. They believe they were a little bit tired. I saw some signs after half-time. They fumbled badly in the first quarter, and I think maybe they, after the week off, they needed to get their heads right. I think we saw it with Collingwood the previous week, but if they continue to fumble the way they did on the weekend, Sydney are going to beat them up.
Well, we saw some extraordinary stuff. I mean, that's an uncontested mark. And
he was as good as they had too.
Correct. He played a fantastic first half of the season, but a lot of his kicks started to miss the target. When it was in tight, when there was pressure on, this is where Collingwood was so good. They forced them into fumbling. They forced them into rushing disposals, and they didn't know what to do with the footy when they did get it.
I loved the Ken Hinkley mantra, handle the heat.
Yep.
And they have handled the heat for the best part of a season and 3 quarters. Right now, they're not handling the heat. Half-time, I'm not sure what was said, but they went in and they did come out a different unit. But they've got one trick, it seems, Mike, and that is get the ball in the back line, pass it into the corridor, and it looks like everybody's worked out that trick.
Yeah,
and they're
I know
blocking
you're
it
saying
off.
that. My question is whether strategy or execution. Now, they take risks, but they've taken risks early in the season. It's the execution of the last skill that's letting them down, in my view.
Well, I think it's a combination of both, but even the ones they're trying to run to are more static targets, where in the first half of the season they were players streaming into space, so there was a little bit more margin for error. You could put the kick out in front of them, but they're kicking largely to static targets, and it's just not working.
And too high. I just wonder if they've lost their confidence in their ability to find the bloke up the field.
I have no doubt the confidence has waned, and I think Ken Hinkley would be desperate to rediscover that formula they had in the first half.
Rediscover it. The third quarter, some of their passages of play were as good as that they'd shown in the first 12 weeks when they were up and about. Their change of handball was enormous. This is the Port Adelaide vision they should be showing all this week.
Yeah, but Gerard, the difference is this was the exception to the rule on the weekend. This was what they were doing all game for the first half of the season.
But Westhoff had his best quarter for a long time.
Hartlett kicked three.
Hartlett was absolutely on fire. They need a few to jump on board. Chad Wingard was unstoppable last year.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, for a second-year player, one of the great second-year seasons.
He's nearly lucky to stay in the team, isn't he?
He would be on the board at the moment.
The one alibi that they've got is their best player this year, I think, is Robbie Gray, and he wasn't well, was he?
No, he was struck down by a virus, obviously, because he could barely get near it. The work rate wasn't there, and certainly his effectiveness wasn't there.
Let's move on and talk about the Demons. They've been right under the microscope since failing to win their fifth win of the season. Mike, how'd you see it?
Well, Gerard, watching Melbourne yesterday reminded me of the immortal line from our former columnist Paul Roos about the worst 40 seconds in... former colleague, about the worst 40 seconds he'd seen in football history. He said that 2 years ago sitting on the couch, Jason. Let's have a reminder of it.
This is the worst, in all seriousness, this is the worst 50 seconds of football in the history of the game.
You've been waiting 19 weeks for that, Mike, and you finally dragged it out.
Now, Roosie's upstaged himself. We saw the worst 2 hours in football history yesterday by Roosie's team, Melbourne. And I don't think there's any defence. I mean, if you saw... There's Bernie Vince who can kick the footy, usually to his own team. They were atrocious yesterday.
And it wasn't just missing a target, they were missing by a long way.
Yeah.
I mean, a horribly long way. Executions that look reasonably simple, some poor decision-making like this one here, and, I mean, that's just a ridiculous kick to even attempt.
But at the end of the day, they were still, I think, 11 points up early in the last quarter. 13 points up. This is a game that just had to be nailed home.
Yeah, but as Justin Leppich said, his team was playing the worst game of football he'd ever seen. But here's Geordie McKenzie having a shot from about 7.5 metres and missing. I mean, they had so many chances to wrap this up. And then when they got in front, Jason, this is what I want to ask you. We have talked before about this. How is it possible that you don't have one bloke forward of the ball in your team? And there were 3 or 4 times the Brisbane blokes set up the wall, Melbourne kicked out, Brisbane got it, their confidence grew, and they knew they were going to run over the top of it.
It can be difficult at times, particularly when you're getting beaten. I think players get caught pushing up the ground, trying to have an impact, trying to chase, trying to put pressure on, and all of a sudden, when they finally do win the ball, there's no one to kick it to coming back.
The wall was at half back. It wasn't. They weren't just getting sucked up to the centre, they were over there. It looked like to me that Ruzzi had sent them all back. Now, I asked him when he came in before for 360, was that the case? He said, no, this was player-driven. They all just got sucked up the ground and stayed there.
Because there weren't enough stoppages to reset the shape. What I was really fascinated by, and I think it's worthy of examination, was Ruzzi's comments re the players being scarred. Let's take a listen to what he had to say after the loss.
I think there's clearly some that we, that might not be able to get over what's happened here in the past, So they're the determinations you've got to make over the next 4 weeks. There's a reason behind the skill error, or there's a reason behind the breakdown, the stoppage, or the kick in, things like that. So I suppose collectively, if you can't work it out, then you just make changes.
Well, the busiest blokes at Melbourne right now are going to be those in charge of list management. And Jason, I know you've taken a look at some of the players you think have got currency. Why don't we begin with you, Mike, and some of the non-tradables?
I've just said these blokes can't. They're just safe. There's a list of 12 that I think that they just can't entertain leaving for lots of various reasons. I mean, Maxi Gawn's there, that might surprise someone, but they've got to have a ruckman. And I like what Gawn has shown, and most of the speak for themselves. I think that anyone other than that group is available for consideration. in
Well,
my
what
view.
I would just say, because I was charged with coming up with finding players that have currency that would actually get something. Because you have to give something to get something.
Yep.
But please, if you're a player, don't get upset. I'm not saying you should be traded, you should be let go. I'm just saying these are players on their list that would have currency, that would provoke some sort of discussion at the trade table. And I think the one thing that Melbourne need to do, and Roos is probably as best placed as anyone is to make some tough decisions, to make some aggressive list management decisions to turn things around.
You've got the captain, co-captain Jack Grimes here, and you've got Jack Watts. In fact, a lot of Joes. If you've got a Jamie in your name, you're in trouble at Demonland right now. Jimmy Toumpas as well. There's some high draft picks, but I think Jack Watts is the one with the fascination. It's for mine almost time for the betterment of him and for the club. I think it might have been
Fresh
time to move on.
Well, sometimes it can actually end up being win-win for the player and the club, can't it? And I'm not necessarily suggesting that is definitely the case for Jack Watts, but they are players that would get you something if you wanted to trade for money.
Isn't it funny that we've both conceded on James Frawley?
Well, he's gone, isn't he?
Well, it would
I mean, if
appear
you haven't
that
re-signed
appears to
in
be
round
the-
19,
the
it's only a
thinking
question
that
of
he's
where.
gone.
But particularly, I think, because you're going to get overs with a player like James Frawley, because the way the market is, everyone wants him, you might actually find you get yourself getting something really, really good.
I understand your point about putting up something to get something, but I wouldn't like the lack of faith to be shown in Jack. I mean, if Jack Grimes is good enough to have been your captain, I think you need to you've got to hold a skeleton together. You've got to keep some of the people that are there now.
Yeah, but if you want to get something, as Jason said, like a McAvoy, you have to put something up.
You can't abandon everything.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
If you've been as low as Melbourne have been for this long, you have to make radical
You
decisions.
can't build from nowhere, Jude. You've got to have a platform.
Understand you have to have a platform. They've got the platform. He's called Paul Roos.
Yep.
They've got
he's
another.
He's not playing anymore.
You're joking. Yeah, no, you're joking. I don't think Jack Grimes has done enough in that place now to say if somebody offered them a first-round draft pick, maybe it's time that they moved on some senior players. Jimmy Toumpas, send him back home if he's not firing. Maybe he's the better player than Melbourne are ever going to see.
Well, do you blokes don't think he's a good player, do you?
Well, there's pick number 3. There's got to be something much more there than what we've seen at the present time.
I remember Matty Lloyd said to me that he thought that Toumpas was the best player in that draft. And he said that before the draft, he said this kid is the best.
Well, I think one of the key decisions you have to make when you're talking about trading is trading players before you've proved conclusively
That they
one way
can't
or the
play.
other, and then watching their value dissipate.
Who's going to ruck in your team if Maxi Gawn goes and Jamo's finished?
Well, hey, I wasn't picking a team. I was making a list of players that will get you something at the trade table.
3 years Paul Roos has got. He's got to sign on for another couple. What's your expectations at the end of year 3? What team's he handing on to the next coach?
Well, for me, it's got to be a team that's at least mid-table, ready to go somewhere, with a base of younger players that have played together for 2 or 3 years, that have learnt some really hardcore basics and are ready to take their game to the next level.
But we do need to make the point, Jared. Is it 3 weeks since they should have beaten Port Adelaide? In Adelaide?
Yeah, but that form doesn't look as good.
They are but they are 4 wins and they were 2 last year. Their percentages improved from the 50s to the 70s.
Do you expect them to be near finals by Roos's end?
Not on what we're seeing right now, no.
But surely you'd be disappointed if they weren't mid-table, Jared.
I have to be mid-table, but the question is mid-table going up or mid-table bolstered by somebody like a Malcheski or anybody who is really an artificial lift.
I don't see Malcheski helping Melbourne.
Well, he's got to help because he's a better player off the halfback
He's
than
got to
they've
get
got.
the footy there. I mean, it's much more difficult to get the footy at Melbourne than it is in Sydney.
I understand that, Mike. He's
They're
going to
coming
get
down a
tagged
lot.
every week.
Yeah.
A couple of blokes that did shine on the weekend showed the double bonus for the Brisbane Lions with the Jonathan Brown retirement. The names McStay and Close, I think we're going to hear a lot more about.
Yeah, and I think Justin Lepich needs to be congratulated for what he's got out of this group and what we're starting to see developing. Michael Close, who looks a really good set shot. He's a good size. He runs well. He leads well. He moves well. And Daniel McStay shows here that he can take a grab. And they're a couple of really exciting players, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And they've got Leuenberger and Richard Redden to come back into this team. Now, I agree with you about Lepich. I think he's stuck with them. He's been patient. I heard an interview with Tommy Rockcliffe this morning. He's all-inclusive with the families and the kids. So I reckon the atmosphere in Brisbane Lions is probably better than it's been for a long time.
I had them bottom 2 pre-season. Perhaps challenging for the wooden spoon. They're better than that, and I was wrong.
They've got a rocket at the present time. We love the roller coaster ride. It's been going on at the Kangaroos now just about the whole season, and this one was a serious tip. Going into the weekend, there were a couple of really big games, and Jason, don't shake your head.
You
I
don't love the
tipped
roller
into them
coaster, do you?
again. I can't believe it.
I can't believe that either. You tipped North, did you? Against Geelong.
I love Geelong as a team, you know, but I keep thinking North are going to break the shackles and put themselves up amongst the top 3 or 4 teams in the competition. And they disappointed me again.
Well, 2 weeks ago, they put on a performance that humbled the Hawks. And that was what I was assuming. And it was really, to me, what sort of performance Geelong would turn in. But it wasn't. Geelong just was probably their best win for a long time. But North Melbourne just couldn't cope with the challenge.
No. Did you think that North was stiff in the way I know umpiring doesn't make a 5-goal difference, but
I thought they were
the
genuinely
tide turned against them, didn't it?
Yep. I got frustrated watching the game that all these kicks went against them and they just seemed to come from nowhere. I mean, if you're provoking it, you get a little push and shove back, you don't deserve a free kick.
No free
if
kick
you're
there.
in the face of your opponent, that is nothing. That is absolutely nothing.
I'm with you on that, but Wayne Campbell says that the umpiring department agreed with that decision.
Well, I'm disappointed that they don't think that was completely out of character with everything else that was happening. He pushed him in the chest.
Yeah, I thought there was arguable about where it was, but Wayne said they felt that the contact was high.
You were concerned this morning about whether or not there had been coaching at half-time and it changed the focus.
Well, there had been a suggestion that the focus had definitely changed at half-time. Cambo said that they do talk to them at all the breaks, and I understand that. They've got coaches and they talk to their umpires. He said to me, though, that 2 of the 3 decisions that we looked at were correct. One against Harvey was incorrect, and that the discussion at the breaks is more philosophical than specific incidents.
Yeah, well, it seemed that there were a number of very similar incidents after those ones that were paid that were let go for the rest of the game. But the bigger issue I have is if you're being provocative and you're getting in someone's personal space, you don't deserve the protection they're getting. Now, I don't think you should be able to whack them. But if you can't give them a slap or push them away or shove them or a bump or whatever, give as good as you're getting, I have a problem with those players provoking then getting rewarded.
Yep.
Commonwealth Games is over, but the diving continued, Mike, and Lindsay Thomas has got all sorts of criticism for this effort.
He gets a silver for that, Jared, I reckon. It's a gentle touch, isn't
Free
it?
kick was there.
He nearly got a medal in the long jump. He certainly made the sandpit,
That's
let me
good.
tell you.
Now, I want to ask you about how, having seen that, the dive there, matched it up with the description of what the reporting, how you can be reported for taking a dive, right? Here are the tribunal guidelines, definitions and guidelines. A player will be reported for staging. Staging can include excessive exaggeration of contact in an unsportsmanlike manner. Staging shall be a reportable offence as it may, blah, 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 blah. Now, if that's not staging, I don't know, I can't think of a more precise definition of staging.
But in which it didn't affect the umpire's decision-making because he saw the hands immediately and he paid the free kick. And the free kick's the correct decision. You can't put hands in the back. Is it likely to incite a melee? No, absolutely not. Is it unsportsmanlike?
Well,
that's perhaps
it is
where
if
you
it's
argue.
trying to con a free kick.
I hear what you're saying, and that's what I like about Brad Scott's comments. He said he didn't like it. He said he has actually spoken to Lindsay Thomas about it before, and he said he'll do it again. And I applaud Brad for doing that.
He was forthright after the game. And Lindsay Thomas shouldn't carry the can entirely for this.
No, he's not the only one.
No, there was a Brownlow medalist a dual Brownlow medalist named Adam Goods, who's got form on this, and I thought again on Friday night that was unnecessary.
Well, when you see the replay, it looks worse because contact stopped and then he's throwing himself to the ground.
He's far too good to be doing that.
Yeah, but we've seen players do it on and on and on over the years. So why aren't they at least sending out some messages to players? This is an example. Stop it, or next time it'll be worse.
We've got to move on. Steve Johnson has fallen foul of the tribunal once again. Again, Chris Scott will be disappointed. He hasn't got him. Is there enough force in this incident, though, to warrant a suspension based on what we've seen?
I reckon it's because his name's Stevie Johnson. I think he knelt on him rather than kneed him. Now, that is not as excessive. That's because it's the knee and the look's not good.
It's a bad look.
Yeah,
that's what
that's
contributes to that. But also, Thompson shows pretty serious contact, the way he
Well, he's pretty happy.
rolls.
Did you see that as serious contact?
No, it didn't look serious, but it looks bad. and we know that we don't like things that look bad in the game, and the knee's not ideal.
One of them wasn't the speed of the Cats. They are really starting to gather some momentum. Mike, tell us why this group of players can't take them to a flag. You've got Motlop, you've got Christensen,
Yep.
Murdoch
Stokes,
is also
Murdoch,
in Stokes.
yep.
They are a powerful unit. Get it right 3 games in September, they get another one.
Yeah.
It's a weapon.
It's a very
Oh, it's
hard
a
question
massive
to
weapon.
answer,
This is
Jared.
a weapon for the Cats. And if you remember, we're all talking about this ageing group. Well,
Yep.
they've reinvigorated it with young players that can run, and it breaks open teams. Look, they're jogging, and the players behind them can't catch them.
Yeah, and Motlop's the bloke that's given them the spark, isn't he?
Well, I think you're right. I think he is, and I think Christensen now was that was really terrible stuff
Yeah.
there from Nick Dalsano. But
On 2
it's the
counts, yeah.
speed,
Yeah.
and I think it's the Lee Matthews thought on premierships just keeps on wobbling around in my mind. You don't have to be the best side through the season. You just have to get it
best in
right in
September.
September, and that group can get it right.
So to be
Jared,
fair, they
once again, why can't they win it?
Well,
Mike?
because I need to see them take a big scalp, and they haven't done that. I don't consider North a big scalp. I want to see them beat a good side before I think that they're good enough to win 3 games in September.
They get a test on the weekend. It's a retest, and I know Ryan Crowley will be devastated that Stevie Johnson's not playing because he won't know where to go. But it's a really good test for both clubs. Fremantle just fell in on the weekend, but they did so, and I think it should be noted, they did so with just 20 players. Pavlich wasn't there. Tendai Mazungo not there
Geez,
as
you've
well.
got good at finding positive things in teams this weekend, aren't you?
Well, I
that was a
think-
poor performance by Freo.
They're going to have to be better to beat Geelong, but I wouldn't be writing them off just at the moment, Mike. I think they can
What
still
have you
come.
seen from Freo that makes you
I've
think...
seen their best this year, and I think if you've seen the best this year, I can still remember them beating Collingwood in round 1 when we'd already written them off.
17
They've
weeks ago.
Still got the capacity. They've won about I think 8 out of 10 games. They're not easy beats just at the moment.
Jared, have they become more vulnerable down back? The numbers will tell you that once the opposition gets it inside 50, they're scoring a lot more freely, and this would be disconcerting for Ross Lyon, I would have thought. So they're number 1 in terms of the number of inside 50s they're conceding, but look how easily the opposition's scoring, and particularly in the last month. They are now 17th in the competition for preventing scores once the ball's inside 50.
Their 2 best servants of the last 10 years are both in trouble, and they're at opposite ends of the ground.
McFarlane and Pavlich,
Matthew
yeah.
Pavlich.
And that's the reason why they'll be out looking for some scalps. I think we're going to find out a little bit more in the last 2 or 3 weeks about Freo. But, Mike, you're a brave man to write them off at this early stage.
Keep reminding people. I thought I was going to get away with it.
Andy wrote the Cats off.
He won't write off this next bloke, though. So Lenny Hayes is our special guest.
As a kid playing his first game, Glenn Archer lined him up. Bang!
I got home after the game, I walked in the lounge room. We had a really good win that day too, and I thought the wife would be happy with me. She turned and gave me a dirty look. And I thought, what have I done? And she goes, why did you run into that young kid? The young boy playing his first game, Lenny Hayes. He ran in, bowled him over. I said, I can't remember. I obviously ran in to try and get the ball and knocked him over. Who cares? So the love for Lenny started very early in my household.
No doubt, Glenn Archer has been making a big impact since his first game till now, some 293 games later. And Lenny Hayes, he plays his last game in Melbourne on Sunday. It's a tribute match at Etihad Stadium versus the Dogs, and I'm sure there'll be a double the normal crowd to welcome Lenny and say farewell. Great to have you on for the last time as a player, Lenny.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jared. It's great to be here.
Do you remember your first game?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I remember it pretty well. I haven't been able to forget it after Archer cleaned me up. It was a really fair hit.
No free kick for that.
I think I did get a free kick, but
Archie get 3 weeks today.
yeah, he might. No, he got me up the middle, so I think it was all fair. But we ended up losing that game, so a little bit disappointed.
Do you
with the
remember
result.
your first kick?
Yeah, I do. It was on my left. It was out of bounds on the floor. Almost hit one of the trainers in the head. It was just before half time too, so it wasn't the best start.
Well, it's gone on from there. That wasn't the best start, I've got to say, on the siren. That is quite amusing. You're known as the candy man. You must be making millions out of selling candy all over the side.
Oh, look, it's one of those things I guess I picked up, playing a lot of touch football and a bit of rugby throughout my school years, and I was never overly blessed with pace, Mike, so I had to throw it out there every now and again, and luckily a lot of guys have fallen for it.
Let me take you back to the 1998 draft. You're a Sydney boy, Pennant Hills. The draft comes along. The Swans take 3 players: Nick Fosdyke, Ryan Fitzgerald and Jude Bolton before you. Were you offended by that, and did you understand why?
No, I wasn't offended at all. I think my mum was probably more offended than anyone. She would have loved to have had me stay in Sydney, but I think, look, all 3 of those guys were, great players in their own right. And I think sometimes with younger guys, we're in their backyard, and almost sometimes they see too much of you, and they can pick up the things that you don't do so well as compared to the things you do well. So I guess I knew probably halfway through the year, and Stevie Wright was my coach, and I'd played a reserve grade game for the Swans, and he sort of said, look, don't get your hopes up. There's 15 other teams out there, and you're a good chance to go to any one of those. So I didn't go into the draft expecting to go to Sydney, and I was certainly pretty rapt to get picked up in St Kilda.
12 months later, Lenny, there was a story, I don't know whether it was fact or fiction, that St Kilda and the Swans were prepared to deal on Bolton and Hayes. You'd go back to Sydney and Jude Bolton would come back to Melbourne. Do you know of that story?
No, I only heard about it probably 2 weeks ago when Timmy Watson got on the radio and said that, so it's certainly a surprise to me. But, I played against Jude at under-18 level as well, and, we saw what a great career he had, so it probably would have been a win-win for both clubs.
Lenny, I don't think anyone's been held in higher regard than you. It's been an outstanding career, and I congratulate you on that. Did you love the game more, and we just saw footage of your first game, back when you started, as opposed to what the game is now? How have you seen it evolve?
Oh, I still love the game more than ever, Jace. It certainly has changed a lot, but it's the passion for me is still there with football. And I guess the game's sped up a lot. I think the game's still really tough. There's a lot of talk about the state of the game, but I think it's still in really good condition, and I think it's going to sort itself out. I think there's a lot of scrutiny and there's a lot more media talk these days than there was back when I first started. But it's certainly, it's certainly evolved. But I think it's still a great game. It's
an outstanding career. I mean, incredibly decorated career. What's your philosophy on taggers? A, do the umpires give enough protection? B, how you should be able to deal with them? Those sorts of things.
Got to be a little bit careful. One of my best mates, Stephen Baker, was a renowned tagger. But no, look, I think they're a part of the game. I think that you do need to protect the ball player, and the only thing that I don't like, and when I used to get tagged, I don't get tagged anymore, but when they'd turn their back on the play and would just face you, and Rui tells me to stop whinging because he gets that every week.
Yeah.
But look, they're a part of the game, and they always have been, and I think there's still a place for them.
Lenny, at the risk of reopening old wounds, the grand finals. You've got Norm Smith as sort of some compensation, but the pain of that, the pain of playing in 3, drawing 1 and losing 2, it's going to live with you forever, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was certainly disappointing at the time not to be able to hold that cup up, and for a long period of time that was my goal in football, was to be able to do that and achieve that with my teammates. But as I've said in the past, I don't have any regrets, and I think that those teams couldn't have done any more to try and get over the line. So in that, I feel a sense of real pride in how we went about it. At the end of the day, it's disappointing not to get it, because I know how much it would have meant to all the players and staff and all of our fans, but I do know that when we do win that premiership, I'll be in the stands, and I'll certainly have a big smile on my face.
Lenny, one of the most emotional scenes I've ever seen in a grand final is when you embraced Luke Ball afterwards. What were you thinking? What did you say?
Oh, look, I think that's I didn't really say anything, to be honest. Baller came up to me, and I think it shows the class of the guy that he went out of his way to come up, and we'd obviously played a bit on each other that day, and just I guess shared his commiserations with me, and I felt that was, it was pretty touching at the time, because I knew how ecstatic he would have been, but I thought it showed a lot of class the way that Paulie came up and did that. And he was a great player for us. It was very hard playing against him, but obviously, he's had a fantastic career, and, wished him all the best.
There's a lot of luck in football, as in being at the right club at the right time to enjoy the ultimate success. Is there... or are there varying degrees of success? For instance, if you've played at a club where you haven't won a premiership, do you consider it success, the fact that you've been to the last weekend in September?
I think when I look back over my career, when I first got to the club, we weren't doing so well. We had a couple of coach changes early in my career, and I think we got a really good young group of players together, and I felt like we really stood for something over a long period of time. And when you look back, it's, you know, the end result is that premiership, and unfortunately we didn't get that. But I think for a long period of time, for a club that has been starved of success, I think we had quite a successful era in terms of being able to give ourselves a chance to win that.
Yep.
And that I'm really proud of.
What did you think when you saw your mates, long-serving teammates, Goddard, Del Santo, McAvoy all leave?
Yeah, initially it was disappointing because I'd played a lot of football with those guys, but then again I understand where the club was at, and sometimes in football, I guess all the time, football players, coaches, staff, they move on, and the club have gone down a certain path with trying to get in draft picks, and the situation we're in right now reminds me of when I first got to the club. So I understand that that's all part of the process, and whilst it's not enjoyable playing against those guys, I'm really thankful that I got to play a lot of football with those guys at the same time.
They went via free agency. You've picked up a couple of players via free agency. What's your view on it? Because people not so long out of the game as players, Chris Scott, for instance, not overly thrilled with what free agency is doing, and I think collectively the coaches thinks it's a major blight and problem for the game.
I'll probably need a couple more years just to see how it pans out. I think what it does do, it gives players a bit more freedom and a few more options, because I think for a long time the club's held all the power. So in that sense, I think it's a good thing for players to be able to have that opportunity to get to another club. But I think in the long term of things, I think I need a couple more years just to see how it does pan out. And as you said, we've lost a couple of players, but we've also gained some as well. So I think we've won and lost off it.
Damien Hardwick's shown interest in you, I think 12 months ago. A lot of people think that your future lies in coaching. Is that correct?
Oh, look, I'm still not 100% sure, Jay. So I initially said that I wanted to get the decision about retirement out of the way, and then play the last few games, and in that time and over the next probably 2 months make a decision on my future. I've done some coaching courses and things like that, but whether that's going to be the next part of my career or not, I'm still not 100% sure.
You're renowned for getting the most out of yourself. You've got a few players at St Kilda that probably are going to determine whether you rise up rapidly or don't rise at all. One of them is Reece Stanley. I mean, he's one of the great athletes that's playing at the present time. He's starting to show some signs, and yet it still seems as if he's sprinting at one level and then he's jogging at the next.
Well, look, he's certainly come under a fair amount of scrutiny, but the guy's only played, I think, just over 50 games. I think he's only about 23, so we certainly haven't seen the best of Reece. But he's probably been a little bit indicative of where we are as a team. We've just been a little bit up and down, and we're looking for everyone to be a bit more consistent. So I've got no doubt his best footy's ahead of him, and I'd like him to see him stay at the club for another 10 years, because I think he's going to be a fantastic player.
Lenny, the number 7 Guernsey's been worn by Nicky Winmar and your good self over a long period. Is it true that you've suggested to Luke Dunstan that he take it on?
Look, I haven't suggested that, Mike, but look, that's something that we'll talk about over the next few weeks. But he's certainly a guy that I've worked really closely with, and I love the way he goes about it. So I could see him fitting very nicely into it. But yet to make a decision on that.
Congratulations on a great career. It's been a privilege to watch you play, and it'll be great to see hundreds of thousands of people cram into Etihad Stadium with the roof closed to see your final game.
Thanks very much.
Congratulations, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jared.
Now, Jace, this T-shirt speaks for all football followers.
Absolutely.
Now, I've got a good friend called Mike, Lenny, just a young bloke. Can you sign it? Here, Mike, all
Why
the
don't you
best.
hold it up so we can have a good look at it, Michael?
I did.
Yeah, we missed it the first time round.
That's it.
Good on you, Lenny. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys. Ta.
Lenny Hayes. Plenty more to come on the couch.
Sporty Lancer GSR hatch from $22,990 drive away.
I've discovered something small, red and more powerful than fish oil for arthritis. Red krill oil from Bioglan. So powerful, it's used by the Queensland Reds for joint health and to fight inflammation.
Performance matters. That's why the Reds choose Red Krill Oil. It boosts recovery and keeps the Reds on the field week after week.
Red krill oil helps support joint health and maintain healthy cholesterol. Trust the power of red. The Queensland Reds do, so can you. Red krill oil from Bioglan.
We always want more of the good stuff.
like a sweet 3 gigs of data and a new HTC One M8 for just $70 a month. Plus, switch to Vodafone now and get the first 2 months for free. That's good. Live more internet. Vodafone.
The story of our nation is built from remnants of the past.
Now relegated to overcrowded barns and gathering dust in your living room.
As these icons slowly disappear,
it's people like us,
collectors,
hoarders,
amateur archaeologists
that understand their true value.
Because some finds are worth more than just the sum of their parts.
Aussie Pickers. New season starts Tuesday, August 12, only on A&E.
This is Hearn. He might kick it 85 metres. It's on its way. It's all about the bounce, and the bounce is true.
And from 75 out in Freak Week, he went bang.
He's always been a freak of a shot. Haven't seen enough of it this year, not just from Shannon Hearn, but from the West Coast Eagles. But they did everybody a favour by opening up the lower reaches of the 8 with a big victory against Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. It was one of their most impressive, in fact, it was their most impressive performance of the year, Mike.
By a long way. They hadn't beaten anyone of any quality until the weekend. I can't understand Adelaide, can you? Playing West Coast at home with a spot in the finals at stake, and the intensity was never there, was it?
No, they haven't. They looked to be in the box seat to grab 8th spot, but they just weren't good enough. And I thought West Coast had lost any chance when they dropped that game to Richmond over in the West. Then they go to Adelaide. You think their season's probably over, and they put in a performance like this that actually puts them back in the mix because they've got good percentage.
And some big games coming up in round 20 that will go close to determining who can and can't. Eagles and Pies, Mike. If the Pies win that, then the Eagles are doomed. And the Pies are just about safe. Richmond and Essendon. Well, if Richmond lose, they're out.
Big game. Huge
Essendon,
game.
it's a massive game for both clubs. Gold Coast and Carlton similarly for the Gold Coast. And Brisbane Lions, well, if they upset Adelaide, it wouldn't be surprising because Adelaide are starting to be a roller coaster.
Two things I learned from that game. If Dangerfield and Sloane aren't the best for Adelaide, they don't win. And when Kennedy and Darling play like they can, the West Coast are a chance against anyone.
And that's what they haven't done much this year. They haven't played well together. One of them will bob up every now and then, but if the two can actually find form and consistency, they then become such a dangerous team because they don't get one-dimensional the way they're kicking it into the forward 50.
Gaff's also really important.
The supply was better.
And the whole midfield is the issue for this group. I think there's a lot of positives because they've got the boxes ticked at both ends with the talls, but they've just got to add some depth to their midfield and get the likes of Gaff to come and play as his drafting position suggested.
But the two tall blokes played better than they have. They attacked the ball a lot better, didn't they? And they were cleaner.
I should mention that the loss of Talia didn't help Adelaide.
No, it didn't.
He's been a star.
Yeah, he has.
Who are you going to tip, Pies or Eagles? Over there.
Over there.
You're having a bad run, aren't you?
I'm having a terrible run. I'll toss a coin for that one.
No, tip one and then we'll tip the other.
Okay. If the Pies bring the pressure that they brought to bear on the weekend, then they're going to be very dangerous. This was a major upside for Nathan Buckley. He was under the microscope himself. He made some changes and he brought in a very quick side.
Yeah, look, their work ethic was better, and they're better. Their senior blokes were really good, weren't they?
They were, and they need them to be.
Yeah, they do.
They need them to lead the way. And I mean, when Beams and Sidebottom and Pendlebury and these blokes are dominating the midfield, you know they're going to go close to winning the game.
Lockie Keefe played the best game I've seen him play. I think he's underrated. He's coming along. Jack Frost, can he win the Rising Star Award? He's been a very consistent player.
He wouldn't be my pick just yet.
It's become a very interesting battle, that one, though. There's no absolute standouts, I don't think. But that sort of unbelievable pressure that really confused Port Adelaide will bring most teams undone.
The pressure, great, but was their offensive work, was their execution good? It was just a game, wasn't it?
Well, I know you're half empty for the Pies.
Only on this, and Geelong.
And Geelong. Now, look, I think there's some positives. I think the bottom line for Collingwood is, in the first final last year, they got humbled by Port Adelaide. They made a major challenge to their own club. Nathan Buckley talked about culture. If they can finish up with another final, having sacked half a dozen premiership players and bringing some kids in, that's more than half empty, Mike. That, to me, is half full. Josh Kennedy, another brilliant game on the weekend. He is firming as a genuine chance for the Brownlow.
There's no doubt he's a genuine chance.
Be a worthy winner,
He would be, and he would be the third straight father and son.
It's
behind
Watson and
Ablett. Yeah. Now, look, I reckon he's an undeniable chance, and particularly with Fife and Rockcliffe both out. Rockcliffe's a vote getter.
Absolutely. So, he could win by a space.
Josh
Kennedy. The way he's polled in so many games. Although I got a little, I got an inkling. I got an inkling that you got the same inkling, Mike, that someone might think that the great Gary Ablett can still hold on.
I think he can.
But the only thing, when Jared says he might have had an interest on that, Jared has a lot of bets, Jason. He covers the bases.
Well, I've only had one on the Brownlow. For mine at the moment, Gary Ablett is still
So you
the
reckon he's
favourite.
going to hang on to it?
Well, I think he's as good a chance as any. With a couple of the others not available, Mike, as you've rightly pointed out, I think he's a genuine chance, and I'll be going...
It should be a good count if...
it would be a great count.
Gillian McLaughlin hopes you're right.
Yes, you're right. He hopes there's a boy from West Australia that misses out. You mentioned Kennedy. His opponent on the weekend was Goddard, Brendan Goddard, who's been pretty good for the Bombers, you've got to say, in the absence of their skipper. But on the weekend, he let himself down, and it was pointed out by David King.
Goddard is coming forward with Kennedy. Those two players right there. Watch as this play unfolds. Kennedy doesn't want to go. Goddard doesn't want to go with him to the goal square. He doesn't want to play full back. He doesn't want to go the whole way with him. You can just see there, Goddard wants to play a different role. He wants to go and be the loose man in here and fill in the space. And he doesn't want to play on his man who's getting some luxuries forward of centre. Kennedy's taking him to full forward again, and out he comes. He doesn't want to be there, Goddard. He stays back on the space. He allows Hooker to release off his man, who's the most dangerous man in the opposition team, to do the job for him. Now he rolls up and takes the mark. Now, to me, that's poor leadership.
And it was poor leadership, and it was unfortunate for Brendan because he has been really good in that department. He has stepped up, and genuine chance for all Australian. But it was a disappointing result for the Bombers. But
yeah, you know what the funny thing is, though? Sydney didn't play well either, but I think that's the sign of a really good side, is when you can play average footy and still beat decent teams. And if you saw a couple of things that Sydney did on the weekend that were very un-Sydney-like, I'm talking about some of their inside 50 entries, you don't see Sydney bomb away to where all the loose numbers are. They don't do this. So there's plenty for John Longmire to work on. This team's just going to go from strength to strength. They've got Franklin to come back in, still not playing at their best and just chalking up wins.
Did you, when the Bombers got to within 10 points after kicking 3 goals in a row, did you think it was a game or not?
No, for whatever reason, I just didn't feel like they were ever going to threaten Sydney.
Are you surprised how good Ben McGlynn has become?
No, because the thing about Benny McGlynn is he will work for you all day. He will give absolutely everything he's got. I think the knock at Hawthorn was perhaps just lacked a tiny bit of polish with his foot skills, but his ability to run, his desire, his toughness were never in question.
That's Kennedy, McGlynn and Franklin. They've got something in common, haven't they?
Yep. Sydney handpicked them, made them very good offers and couldn't be matched.
I think Ben McGlynn's got the same father as Puopolo. He's got similar work rate. Chris Judd's going to be our guest next week on the couch. Are you expecting him, Mike, to go on with it after the weekend? Because his form last week was superb.
Look, I thought he was going to give it away. His most recent comment that I saw indicated that he might be still open-minded about it. But if I had to take a punt, I'd say that this will be his last year.
Blues kicked 6 goals early from clearances. Chris Judd was right involved. He just looks like he's got the speed back.
He does. Yeah, he's always made good decisions, hasn't he? What
doing
do you
a lot
think,
of
Jason?
work. He's doing a lot of work inside, though. You're still not seeing that line breaking that we used to see, and that's natural. I mean, that is absolutely natural at this stage of his career. If he wants to play on, he certainly.
Do you think if the Blues can finish the season on a positive note, that could tip him over to stay another year?
I think, and look, I don't know Juddy particularly well, but I think he'll make a decision based on what he feels he can get out of his body and whether it's going to be up to the standards that he wants it to be.
If you were counselling him, if you were involved in that, would you suggest he play on?
Oh, I don't know how he's feeling. I've no idea what he's...
But you see him on the field.
If I was coaching a team that he was playing for, I'd encourage him to go on.
You would.
But I think he's got high standards, and if he can't stick to those standards, I think he'll retire.
One of the disappointments of the weekend was the Dogs. I thought they'd be far more competitive given the outs for Hawthorn, and yet they managed just 6 goals. Mike, I didn't see much of the game, I've got to say, but...
They lost momentum, there's no doubt about that. The Hawks are very, very good. If you need to play really well to stretch them, but that's not good enough from the Doggies. I mean, we'd praised them. You and I have been really positive about where they were headed, but they've got to minimise the damage of these sort of losses.
They do, but it's a tough ground. I mean, not many teams go to Aurora Stadium and get the points, do they?
No, but they only kicked 6-9, as Jared said.
Yeah,
well, they did.
No Mitchell, no Isaac Smith. I think based on where they've been, they looked as if they'd turned the corner, and this was a disappointment for them.
But they're not going to play at their best every week. because they still are a young developing side.
Well,
They're going to be dips.
Tell you what, someone who does play at his best every week is Jared Ruffhead. I think he's nearly the most valuable player in the game.
That's pretty cool.
For his ability, his goal kicking ability, his marking, and you can put him on the ball, can't you?
It's interesting because a couple of seasons ago he was actually playing in the ruck.
Yeah.
He now plays as a ruck rover, and a very good one when he goes in there. He also drops behind play when they need him to, and we know what a quality key forward he is. He's a star.
He is a star. Mike, the match review panel has been one of your pet hates for most of the season. He's coming off the long run straight after this in Mike's very mad minute. In fact, he's as mad as hell.
There you are on the ground after the game in obvious pain and distress. I mean, how long does it take for that feeling, the wounds to heal?
Oh, look, for the many hundreds and hundreds of AFL players who have been through the system and not tasted that ultimate glory, and then to get that close and still not taste it, just burns in it. And I don't think you ever will. As a sportsman, as an elite sportsman, you know, the pain subsides, but the memories come back even when people talk about it, and the what ifs. And I don't have too many what ifs in my life, but that's the big one that just burns in your gut, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Big St Kilda night on Fox Footy. Mike Sheehan with the great Stewie Lowe. Do you feel privileged and lucky that you got to drink 4 times from the cup that the rest of us have missed out on?
Absolutely. As I said to Lenny earlier, there's a lot of luck in being at the right club at the right time. And Bucket's ripping blokes to Lowe. Get the feeling he doesn't pull any punches.
No, it's good. I've enjoyed it, but I'm mad for the minute.
Well, Peter Finch is watching this, Mike. I hope you're as mad as hell.
Peter Finch from Network.
That's the one.
Well, look, MRP. Now, I could say it's a joke, but jokes are funny, are they not? I just get bemused, Jared. I know you like that word. A week ago, we see Dean Cox elbow Ty Vickery in the where he didn't want to be hit, and he hurt him, right? Yep. But if you're in the ruck, you're allowed to do that, apparently. You know, because there's rules for ruckman and that don't apply to anyone else. And there's another new rule now. You get a free hit at Ryan Crowley.
Yep.
Mark Murphy, like Cox before him, has given him a real big, a really strong, aggressive, vigorous elbow to the comics. Crowley doesn't like it, throws him to the ground. Murphy ends up with the free kick. But the match review panel says that was insufficient force. Now, if Stevie Johnson's, as a worst case, hurts you more than that, I'll go he.
See, what worries me is we don't want staging. But if Crowley goes down, buckles over and holds his stomach and says that really hurt, then Murphy's in trouble. But because he's tough enough to stand there, cop it, and then retaliate, he gets pinned.
He's entitled to a free kick. We mightn't like the way he plays all the time, but if he's infringed against, he's entitled to a free. Now, Daniel Merritt should be now, overnight, headed at the Tatslotto agency to buy 25 tickets tomorrow.
That's an amazing decision.
Look at that. Now, Camp Pedersen has got a busted nose and may have to have surgery to correct it.
That's a careless to the extreme, if you're being kind.
Daniel Merritt got up with a look of sort of say, well, here's another 2 or 3 week holiday. I can't believe the game allows that to happen with no penalty.
No, I agree with you, Mike.
Am I mad enough?
No, you're not.
No,
I think it was disgraceful. I think the standard was set last week with
Ty Vickery,
David Grace, QC, who's in charge of the tribunal.
David Jones.
David Jones, yeah. 4 weeks wasn't enough.
And he sort of encouraged the tribunal, as I read it, to make that decision. I changed my mind on that. I originally said 4. The Vickery one was 6, maybe down to 5.
You don't sound mad, though.
Well, I'm trying to be rational, Jace.
I don't think you had a red-hot crack.
All right, sack them all. Is that better? Get rid of the match.
That's more than Mike Sheehan we like and love. Mike, great to have you on board. Jason, we'll see you next week. Thanks for your company. Chris Judd, our special guest next week.